Okay, with us today we have the Athletics Liverpool writer James Pearce, as well as our senior football reporter David Ornstein. David, look, you broke the news that Salah is expected to stay at Liverpool next season. We'll touch on the Saudi conversation a little later on in the programme. So, just bring us up to speed from the story yesterday.
Yeah, the most important thing to say is that Liverpool fully expect Mo Salah to stay this summer, and to the extent that they are planning with him as being a key part of their squad still for next season and potentially even beyond. The beyond bit we can come on to speak about in due course. Furthermore, there has been zero indication from Mo Salah that he intends to leave. Nothing at all. To the contrary, he appears to Liverpool to be fully committed to them and this new era, which sees Jurgen Klopp replaced imminently by Arne Slot, that sees Michael Edwards arrive as CEO of football to Fenway Sports Group, that sees Richard Hughes start in the summer as the new sporting director. And I'm sure there'll be more changes on the playing side too. Now, this conversation has naturally come to the fore because Salah is approaching the final 12 months of his contract. There's no news yet about a new deal. Similar situations with Virgil van Dijk, captain, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, vice-captain. They're also out of contract in the summer of 2025 with no news on their deals either. Furthermore, the form that Salah has displayed pretty much since his hamstring injuries at the Africa Cup of Nations has given cause for some concern. And the heated exchange he appeared to have with Jurgen Klopp on the touchline at West Ham at the weekend. However, my information, sourced and corroborated from all sides, indicates that Mo Salah is going to be continuing at Liverpool, that the league that has been linked with him the most, the Saudi Pro League, expects him to stay, and that they think he wants to be at Liverpool for the 2024-25 season. You never say never in this industry, but as far as I have been able to establish and report with authority, Mo Salah's Liverpool journey is not about to come to an end, contrary to a lot of the public speculation.
Yeah, and you can understand some of that speculation, James. We also saw that disagreement with Jurgen Klopp on the sidelines, that draw with West Ham. And you actually spoke to Salah, post-match, and said that famous line that has now gone quite viral, really. There will be fire if he spoke, What did you make of that comment?
I thought it was a strange reaction, I've got to say. I mean, I've probably asked Mo Salah to stop in mix zones 150 times probably in the last few years, and the stock answer is usually not today, thanks. I think he's stopped to spoke to us in the kind of the UK written press twice in coming up to 7 years at Liverpool. So yeah, I was surprised, but especially I think his manager. I just had word from the press room that someone had sent me Klopp's quote from the press conference at the time where he'd said we've spoke about it in the dressing room, it's done, finished, we all move on. Klopp was then asked, does Salah see it the same way? And he said, well, that's my impression, yes. And then, and Salah knew, when you say something like that, if I speak today, there will be fire. He knew that was going to, just give more oxygen really to the story. He could have said, it's absolutely nothing, it's sorted. He could have, I think he should have done, which was he should have apologised, because I thought what he did in a very public environment to someone who's elevated his career to incredible heights, I think he should have apologised. So yeah, I was quite surprised by what Salah said.
Yeah, you dropped an article today, how do Liverpool solve a problem like Mo Salah? I mean, from what David's saying, seems like he looks like he'll stay on. Do you think this could be a bonus for Arne Slot, inheriting a player like him, which I guess is really symbolic of the Klopp era, really?
Yeah, I think it's a real dilemma that Arne Slot is walking into there. And of course, it's not just his call. It'll be a decision that's made in conversations with Richard Hughes, the new sporting director, and Michael Edwards, FSG CEO of football. And of course, Edwards is a huge Salah fan. He was the one who really banged the drum to sign him from Roma, coming up to 7 years ago. And I think they will still believe that despite the slump we've seen in Salah's form in the last 3 months, they'll believe that he can get back to where he was. And we're talking about an incredible athlete. And usually with footballers, you'd say, well, he's 32 in June. He's kind of over the top of the mountain and is coming down the other side. But I think that's why Salah, I'm not sure. I just think what we've seen the last few months has been the impact of having his first serious injury mid-season at Liverpool, and then the problems of trying to get back up to speed and gain rhythm again after that. So it's going to be intriguing because, as David said, the situation as we understand it at the moment is that Liverpool expect him to stay. He's given no indication that he wants to go. The Saudi Pro League seem to believe that they have a better chance of getting him in 2025. And that would kind of tally with, I know 2 years ago when he was in a contract dispute with Liverpool, Salah's camp were adamant that he wouldn't leave with 1 year to go. If it wasn't sorted, he would just sit tight and go on a free. So, the question is, do Liverpool really want to risk losing someone of his stature for nothing? And it does an offer come in this summer which changes Liverpool's stance? You can only, when you look around the footballing world, it can only come from Saudi or maybe PSG in terms of someone who could.
Just a quick one, and I'd be interested from you two to hear your views on this. Start with you, David. We're talking about Mo Salah's form, potentially declining. As we said, this is a player who's going to be 32 this summer. We can't really expect those same standards as a player we've seen in the past, but would we be talking about Mo Salah's form declining if, for instance, a player like Darwin Núñez was firing?
Definitely not in as loud a way as has been articulated from across the industry in the last few days or weeks, because Salah has set a bar that is so high. He at times has sort of carried Liverpool or just played an unbelievable role in their competitiveness during his time at the club. I mean, what a signing he has been. Broken records left, right and centre. He's brought joy to the hearts of Liverpool fans by the million and lit up the Premier League. And he stands for so much more as well, not just on these shores and for the competition, for the Arab world, for Egypt. He's a phenomenon. And yeah, when others aren't pulling their weight in the same way that Liverpool would expect and their fans would want to see, then it highlights it that bit more. I mean, I look at 29 goals in 49 appearances for club and country this season and think that most clubs and sets of fans would love to have that at their disposal. I see a 31-year-old right now, just to point out something Mo Salah might say, and think to myself, he still has a lot left in the tank. I see somebody who was showing his displeasure at being a substitute. I think that was the case at West Ham. And the realisation or the notion that he's now droppable, which hasn't really been the case in the past. He didn't take well to because he's so competitive. He feels he has so much to offer still. Liverpool are going to be back in the Champions League next season, almost certainly. And Mo Salah may, it appear, be or want to be a firm part of that and challenge for the biggest honours again. If he wants to go to the Saudi Pro League or elsewhere, perhaps he feels that can still come further down the line when he's 32 going on 33 in the summer of 2025, or maybe even later. And that's a conversation and a bridge that will need to be crossed when it comes to it, if indeed our understanding is right that he's going to be staying. And you've got to look at the actual incident that everybody's talking about with Jurgen Klopp and see the context. Klopp loves his players. He clearly has great affection for Mo Salah. But he doesn't tend to take kindly to players who don't accept his decisions. We saw that a little bit with Sadio Mane, who left when he started to lose his regular starting berth. It doesn't mean that Klopp has any less affinity with them. It's just something he doesn't seem to like in terms of the cohesion of the squad, and those players don't like when they're so used to their normal routine and have such hunger to be playing and scoring goals. The bottom line is that problem, if it is one, is about to be eliminated because Klopp is heading out of Anfield, whether people like it or not. And that presents the opportunity for Salah and many others, with no disrespect to Klopp, to have a fresh start. And perhaps this is something that Salah wants, that others want or are intrigued by, are looking forward to. And so, we don't know the exact context of that incident and the comment to James in the mix zone after the match, but things are about to change massively. And so, back to your original point, it really is incumbent on the likes of Darwin Núñez, of Diogo Jota, of Luis Diaz, of Cody Gakpo, of Ryan Gravenberch, of Harvey Elliott to step forward, because Mo Salah's brilliance and exploits, that they cannot go on forever. There is naturally going to be some level of decline. I remember Lionel Messi right in front of me at the World Cup when he was playing against Mexico for Argentina, 2022 Qatar. And he was walking around the pitch for most of the game. And a lot of the people around me were like, Messi seems to be finished here. And lo and behold, it was he who popped up and scored the winning goal to break Mexican hearts. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he still had it in him, and he inspired Argentina to win the World Cup in such iconic scenes for him and for his country. And the bare statistics show there is a bit of a drop-off for Salah, maybe in defensive metrics, but he is still contributing quite heavily in the attacking third. The second half of the season hasn't been quite as prolific as the first. We need to mention the injuries when we reference that. So perhaps there's a bit of a messy here. You see somebody like Bukayo Saka's statistics, just to give one player, and he is showing what needs to be done for players going forward if their teams are going to be competitive and successful. He's smashing the metrics in every single department. But that by no means suggests that Salah can't be part of Liverpool going forward. I think he believes he can. I think Liverpool believe he can. I think the suitors believe he will be. And I certainly think there's life in the not-so-old dog yet.
Do you buy that, James? Have Liverpool become so used to Super Salah coming to the rescue? The stats, as Mark said, 17 goals, 9 assists, 21 goal chances created for Darwin Núñez alone this season. Obviously not hitting the usual heights, but it's not just a Salah problem with Liverpool this season.
Yeah, I think there's lots of factors at play there. You're right. In terms of, you look at Salah's overall numbers, and they are still impressive. I think 24 goals for Liverpool in all comps, 12 assists. But he hasn't been, you can't get away from the fact that since he's come back from the injury, he hasn't been anywhere near the Salah that Liverpool have come to know and love over so long. And that is the big question. I still think it's far too soon to talk about he's in decline, which is, in the age we live in now with knee-jerk reactions, that is what a lot of people have jumped to. I just think it's someone coming back from something they've not been used to, with having that not only did he have a bad hamstring injury, but he came back and then aggravated it straight away, and then had another 3 weeks of rehab, which I think psychologically, as much as anything else, is bound to put doubts in your head in terms of, especially someone who relies on that acceleration. Do you have 100% trust in your body? And so I think, and Salah's not stupid. I think what we saw on Saturday was frustration with himself as well, as much as the team's fortunes. I mean, Liverpool's challenge, in terms of the Premier League and obviously what happened in the Europa League, that will have hurt him because he's a winner. He's fiercely ambitious. As much as anyone in that dressing room, he would have wanted to ensure this Klopp era signed off on a high. That hasn't happened, and also he'll be hurt in the fact he hasn't made the contributions in the last couple of months he would have expected to. I think, what is it, in his last 8 appearances, his only 2 goals have been penalties. So, and he has missed a lot of chances. He hasn't pressed at the top end of the pitch like we've come to expect. His touch has let him down. He's been wasteful, but it's far too simple to just point a finger at him, because, at the same point, Darwin Núñez has also suffered his own crisis of confidence. And, and you've had injury issues to people like Diogo Jota. So it's, and then you've got the general fatigue and they just look emotionally spent as a unit, Liverpool, right now.
Yeah, David, let's quickly talk about Saudi. I mean, a player going to be 32 this year. At 33 years old, if he does end up going there, as you're saying, there's not many leagues that would have that kind of money to pay for Mo Salah's salaries first and foremost, but also, I mean, you talk about the Arab connection, it would be an absolute coup for the Saudi Pro League.
Yeah, he'd be the jewel in the crown if they managed to land him for so many reasons. And I've already heard through the game of sponsorship deals that have been lined up and are being worked on whether or not he comes, but it would just be the centerpiece and it, to many of us, the sort of crowning glory. But let's put some perspective on this. When they went for him so aggressively in the summer of 2023, that was largely because that specific team that wanted to sign him, Al Ittihad, had on the horizon the Club World Cup in December of 2023. They were in the same competition as the likes of Manchester City. They wanted Salah as part of their roster to go and attack that competition, and that produced some urgency that isn't there this time around. Furthermore, he's a year older. He is a year closer to the end of his contract. So the sort of money that was being offered and rejected by Liverpool, I doubt is going to be there this time round for those reasons. And so would it get to the level that a club like Liverpool would find acceptable? And above all else, does Mo Salah want to go there at this point? My information is no. He wants to stay at Liverpool for now. So yeah, then you get to the summer of 2025. Let's be clear, I don't think the Saudi Pro League's admiration for Salah has gone away at all, but it's not quite as urgent and aggressive as it was last summer. And so they will be looking at it and say, perhaps we make a big play for him as a free agent if he doesn't sign a new deal at Liverpool. And other leagues may say the same. We don't know what those salary expectations you talk about will be further down the line. Maybe even he signs a new contract at Liverpool. And that's one thing I just want to touch on, is that this is an inherited problem for Richard Hughes, the incoming sporting director. It's Liverpool who have let the contract situations of Salah, Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold get to this point. Richard Hughes, with Michael Edwards above him, they're going to need to get stuck into this. Once the T's have been crossed and I's dotted on the appointment of Arne Slot, then you move on to such important matters. And let's see how they get on. I would suspect that they want all three to stay and will make a big effort to do so. You asked me about the other attacking players like Darwin Núñez. Well, it's those individuals, Hughes, Edwards, the recruitment staff, Dave Fallows, Barry Hunter, Will Spearman on the recruitment side, that are going to need to recruit well to support the likes of Salah, to support Arne Slot, to make the team competitive again. You know, I've already heard from multiple contacts they're looking for a wide player. Now, I don't know if that's to add to what they've already got. Is it because there's been speculation around the future of Luis Diaz, who is yet to sign a new contract, which is quite unusual for a player that's done so well. He's been linked with moves elsewhere. Let's wait and see on that. But it is a bit of a bulging in tray for the new hierarchy. And within that, they'll not want to lose somebody who is so core to that. What happens further down the line, barring some about turn this summer with Salah, is going to be left for another day. And when I say barring an about turn, it's because I've asked the questions, what if this massive offer comes in that people seem to think will arise from the Saudi Pro League? Well, one, I've explained why I don't think it will. But two, it all comes down to Mo Salah. And if he's committed to Liverpool, it's case closed.
All right, David, thanks so much for your time. I know you've got to head off very quickly. Thanks for that. Really appreciate it, brother. This is going to be really interesting, James, for incoming manager Arne Slot. You know, he's inheriting, I guess, a Mo Salah, who is a player of the Klopp era, and some might say perhaps a slightly different level to what he's used to in the Netherlands in terms of profile of player. How he deals with that situation could be really, really fascinating on how he sees this Liverpool team coming together, right? Yeah.
I mean, it is one of the really interesting elements of him being the man of choice. Because I think the more I've spoken to people that have worked with him, the more I've read about him, you can understand why Liverpool have gone for Slot. But when people talk about it being a bit of a gamble, and a lot of the fans I spoke to on the way down to West Ham on Saturday and back on the train, you know, quite a few of them use the word gamble because he hasn't managed an elite European club previously, is that ability to deal with absolutely elite players, which, with the greatest respect to Feyenoord, he hasn't had previously. I think, their record signing during his time there was about €9 million. I think he hasn't had someone who earns more than €40,000 a week. So, you're talking about Salah earns 10 times that. So yeah, bigger names, bigger personalities, probably in a few cases maybe some bigger egos as well that he's going to have to manage. So it is going to be intriguing, and I think that's why there's no real easy answer with the Salah one, because I still think he can get back to where he was. I think it's too soon to write him off as a player in decline. Yes, of course, his game has to evolve. I think it probably has evolved already. He's no longer just the absolute speed merchant on the counter attack. He's a very intelligent footballer. But, as David touched upon there, what do you do? If you're Liverpool, do you really want to keep him for 12 months and let him go for nothing? Because, suddenly you're in the realms of, if you give him a 2-year extension, which is probably the minimum of what he would want, that suddenly that takes him up to what, it almost like could be his 35th birthday. Do you want to be committing, and he wouldn't want less money than he's on. So you're talking about £350,000 a week. Do you want to commit that kind of resource to someone in the latter stages of their career? So, and of course, unless there's an offer that makes you reassess, then the argument's irrelevant anyway, because it's at the moment it's unclear whether there is going to be that bid from the Saudi Pro League to really test the resolve. And also going back to the interest last summer, for all the talk, it was only at the very, very back end of the window that offer of £100 million rising to 150 million came in. And it was dismissed instantly because it was just far too late. Liverpool had no chance to go and source a replacement. I think, I don't think you get that kind of level of fee now, but I don't know, say for argument's sake, you got 80 or 90 million and it was on the table in June. I think then there is a discussion to be had.
My thing is, though, yes, so you do replace Salah. Where do you get a player of that quality, like for a decent fee? I mean, that's also the kind of dilemma, isn't it? You think, from what you're saying, he might get back to where he is. Obviously, he would have lost a little something, but you cannot doubt Salah for his efficiency. And getting a player who can kind of hybrid as a winger striker, at whatever rate, at that quality, man, that's hard to find.
Yeah, it really is. And especially when, because of the crazy high standards that he's set, we're talking about him having a relatively poor season, which I think is fair on the standards that he's set. But he still scored 24 goals and got 12 assists. Those are numbers that most elite Premier League strikers would absolutely bite your hand off for. So that is the dilemma, that almost a little bit of, yes, he might not be quite where he was, but almost be careful what you wish for, really, in terms of, can you really fill that gap? Especially when there's issues in other departments that also need to be addressed by Slot, because it's not just, obviously there's been a lot of noise around Salah since the weekend, and he created a lot of that. But, Darwin Núñez is a big issue. Is he really the number 9 that's going to take Liverpool where they need to go under Slot? The midfield department clearly needs a bit of a refresh. Thiago leaving this summer. Can he get Szoboszlai firing again? Szoboszlai, outstanding in the first 3 or 4 months of the season. Again, another player who suffered an injury and has struggled since. And defensively, Liverpool have looked so frail. Again at West Ham, set pieces, not reacting quickly enough to crosses into the box. The lack of clean sheets has hurt them so badly this season, as especially at the business end of the season with so much on the line. So, there is a fair bit for Slot to sort out there. It's not, rewind a few months and we were probably talking about, oh my God, this guy, whoever the next guy is after Klopp, could be trying to improve on perfection. That's not the case.
Well, that brings me to this point, really, because obviously you wrote a piece on Liverpool's last dance. How following Klopp could be quite daunting, but based on how Liverpool seem to be ending the season, perhaps not as daunting for someone like Slot coming into his new job.
Absolutely, yeah, because I think it feels like a lifetime ago now, probably for Liverpool fans, but it was only 6 weeks ago when they were going to Old Trafford and they already had the Carabao Cup in the cabinet, and you're thinking, a pretty average Manchester United team beat them. You're in the latter stages of the FA Cup. at that point they were in a great position to win the Premier League. Drawn against the 6th best team in Serie A. Looked destined to be heading for a Europa League final showdown with Bayer Leverkusen in Dublin. So it just looked like the stars were aligning, and then and of course it's like, wow, that how do you possibly follow that? If Klopp gets the dream finale, if you win, if the guy before you wins everything, there's only one way you can go. But of course, the way things have gone, and it's been really sad to see as well that seeing how down Klopp has been, because more than anyone he wanted to go out on a high. But it does make things slightly easier for the next guy, because there are issues there. It would be fun. It's not a case of people saying, well, maybe it's a good time for change, because I still think Jurgen Klopp will be massively, massively missed, and they're incredibly big boots to fill. But it doesn't feel like the impossible job that it did look like 5 or 6 weeks ago, because the setbacks they've suffered at this stage of the season have kind of highlighted issues.
Okay, well, let's end it there, James. Thanks so much for your time, and also David, who had to leave us a little earlier as well. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We are back tomorrow.
If you want to watch more episodes of the show, please subscribe to the channel. We'll be joined by the likes of David Ornstein, Matt Slater, Adam Crafton, Carl Anker, and plenty more through the season. If you'd like to listen to the episodes in full in audio form, search The Athletic FC wherever you get your podcasts from.